Welcome to the CEO of Destiny podcast, where you will find the tools to fulfill the purpose of your generation and wildly succeed in the marketplace. And now your host, Andre J. Benjamin.
What do you think are some ways that people who are developers, so the developers that are watching this show right now that are saying, man, what could I do to gamify or to incentivize almost that combination or hybrid of you spend time in here, but we also incentivize you to go get into the real world and go get outside, get fresh air, go connect with the people.
Yeah. It's funny because my team has been reading this book called Hooked. It's called Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products.
And it's a great book.
Yeah, it's a great book. And it's funny because he makes a great point. And he didn't say this in the book. He actually said this in one of his lectures that you watch on YouTube. Because I remember reading this book and people on my team saying, how do we put guardrails to make sure people don't become crazy addicted to Immersed? And for me, it's like, I'll be real, we don't have the user usage to justify any of this. We're barely surviving as a company. So I think pretty sure that's the last thing on my mind right now. Yeah. And honestly, unless you're a TikTok or a Facebook or an Instagram or whatever, you are almost nowhere near that. The problem is not that people are addicted to your app. The problem is no one uses your app. And so my point is, until and that's what Nuriel says in his actual lecture. He says, because people in the audience are asking the question, well, this seems like such a powerful tool. How do we prevent people from using it for evil? And he's like, to be real, none of y'all can most of you, 99% chance you're not even gonna be able to figure out how to build the next TikTok. The chances are so slim. So first off, I'm just trying to get you to get an app that people care about to start with. So, but once you become a Google or a Facebook, whatever, that's when you guys start thinking about digital well-being. How do you get people back into the real world? So the suggestions on our team where people say, oh, what if someone's using the app for 4 hours straight? And we don't want people to be addicted to our app. And I'm like, to be real, out of probably 2,000 users, maybe one of them do that, where they're use it, or not 4 hours, but 6 or 8 hours straight, right? I remember one time I saw a user data point that showed that they had Immersed on for 11 hours straight. I was like, okay, that's kind of insane. Yeah, I'm like, what the crap was wrong with this person? But what I realized is that was one data point out of 100,000. So I was like, all right, well, pretty sure the vast majority of users are using this for 1 to 2 hours, and that's actually their way of being able to stay focused. So I wouldn't argue that we, at 45 minutes, we should have gotten them out of the app. If people feel most productive with an hour, 2 hours, for me personally, back when I used to do some of my greatest work before I started Immersed, I would legit be in front of my computer for 4 hours straight because I wouldn't be able to get to that mode of deep work or that level of thinking or that level of comprehension. It's almost like sleep, where if I only get an hour of sleep, I'm not getting much good sleep at all. But once I'm an hour and a half, 2 hours, if you hit that first REM cycle, you're starting to get into some really deep sleep. And until you hit, and people say obviously you need 8 hours of sleep to have a really good night's sleep. But if I'm constantly getting poked every 45 minutes because it's I'm sleeping too much, it's that's not where I need. Likewise with my work, my work, I compare it to my sleep as far as some of the things that we're building are so complex. Some of the calc-driven technologies that we're building, calculus-driven technologies we're building, or some of the neural network stuff we're it's so complex where if you don't have 2 to 4 hours just to focus, you're not even going to get anywhere near close to solving whatever problem you're trying to solve. So for me, it's I'm totally fine users using this thing for 4 hours straight if they need to, because yes, it sucks that the form factor isn't what it needs to be once it's glasses someday, but plenty of people physicists in the real world, they need to be in front of their computer screen for 4 hours straight just to get to that level of comprehension because they're working into deep work. And so anyways, I'll just say most people don't really have to worry about addiction as a result of the creation of their app, because most people aren't TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I would say, though, at the same time, once you get to that point, if your app is that, which the chances of someone listening to this thing or whatever, if you're the next Elon Musk, if you're the next Mark Zuckerberg, whatever, those are going to be things that do become important. And I also don't even think we have to remind them that. The reason why I say that is because just like TikTok, as soon as they realized people were deleting the app, TikTok started going down. It's as I'm saying, it's our world. I really believe God has created a world in which people are incentivized to not just self-destruct, because then you will cease to exist and he will have his way in the end, regardless. Humankind is not going to just self-destruct. God has a bigger plan than that. And so the world is whether it believes it or not, is somewhat incentivized to head in a direction that is glorifying to God. Because when it comes to things like TikTok, you're scrolling for 8 hours straight. if people start deleting your app, well, then TikTok isn't successful. And so Renji didn't have to remind. Yeah, I didn't have to remind the TikTok people to do that. They realized on their own from the user data that people were already like, crap, this is bad for me. We're deleting this. And then they self-regulated.
So here's a question for you. What are you most excited about right now that you guys are working on? And then also, what was the point in as you were developing the company and you see your team putting stuff together that you're like, man, this is fire. I love this as just a consumer. So I got to guard, like you said, maybe I got to guard myself because I want to be in here for, 15 hours straight. But, I do have a wife, and because you're married, correct? How many years?
Yeah. 6.5 years.
All right, cool. Awesome. So congrats. So
thanks, man.
What are you most excited about with the company, and what can
the thing I'm most excited about right now that we're building is we're building a way for users to remind themselves to get back in the next day. Meaning, like, a lot of our users who are successful are those who have an intrinsic discipline, like really just the A-type personalities are the ones that use our app the most. And we're like, all right, well, what about people who are not naturally very disciplined, right? Like those who don't remind themselves to turn on their headset, connect their screens. Like, we truly believe that users are actually way more productive in Immersed app than without it. And what I mean by that is when you use the Immersed app, it connects your headset to your laptop, it creates 5 screens, and you're in a distraction-free workspace, and you can just get to work for 4 hours of uninterrupted time, and you can enter this mode of deep work more frequently and for longer periods of time. And so really, a lot of users who use our app for 4 hours straight get more work done than people who spend 8 hours just with a normal setup. Because people who just spend 8 hours with a normal setup, they have their phone, they're on TikTok a little bit, then their neighbor comes by to say hi, what up, and like they're not really focusing on their work at all. If you can get like 4 hours of concentrated time, then you're actually getting way more work done. So what we're trying to do is build a mechanism for the non-type A personalities, for them to be able to get back into the app and be reminded every day at 9 a.m., turn on the headset, get in the app, get 4 hours worth of work done, or 2 hours or whatever it is, get something done, and then go do what the heck you want. So it's just taking one step further into better productivity. And so I'm really excited for us to build sort of essentially it's a hooked mechanism to get them back into the app at least once a day. I'm not saying for 8 hours straight. Like, I'm sure we're going to want to go from our average user session time. I think per day it's like an hour and a half. I'm sure we want to go from 1.5 hours to 2 hours or 3 hours, just because if people can be more productive for 3 hours straight, it's better than the crappy 8 hours that they barely even do, right? So it's just, I feel like our world's gonna be more productive if we do things like that. So I'm really excited about that.
Great. Last question I'll ask you before I ask you where people can find you is, I've heard an older, wiser person say that they're learning to do far less in a much more efficient manner or something. There a few things very well is what they're learning to do. What are those few things that you say that you do very well? As a 30-year-old, it's not like you're 70 and I'm asking you this.
Yeah.
You have a greater grasp on it, but
something I want to get better at, or something that I am good at?
Something that you are good at currently, that you do very well, that you would say it would resonate with. Both your wife would say, you're good at, and then almost your mom would say, that's all.
It has to be consistent with people observe, right? I'm the best dunker in the world. Let me think. So the thing that they would say I'm probably best at is, I think that my team would also resonate with this. So like my mom and my family, my friends, my wife, I think they would all agree that a common theme that multiple of them have brought up is oftentimes the role that I'm in requires me to have a grasp on a lot of different things in sync with each other. Meaning our app has an iPhone app, an Android app to get your phones in VR. It has a Mac, Windows, and Linux app to get your computers, your different types of computers in VR. It has social collaboration. It has a metaverse economy aspect, which is a massive can of worms in regards to digital ownership, digital currency, virtual real estate, all of that. We have some computer vision hand tracking stuff. We have our backends API. So my point is, I can keep listening to it goes on and on. We have so many different moving pieces, and if Immersed eventually wants to do more than just allow people to work in VR, but for them to be able to build businesses in our metaverse and employ people in the metaverse and transact goods and services in this metaverse, like, yes, the core root of that is for people to be productive in VR to start with, but then from there, how do they build off of that platform and do a lot more? In order to pull that off, so many of these different moving pieces are necessary to make this perfectly be woven together and be successful. And that is a massive moat for us if we pull that off. But I think that the thing that they would all affirm is that I'm pretty good at being able to make sure that all those different efforts are aligned and going in the same direction. And because I truly believe that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts individually, right? So if we're able to get all these things together, it's going to be increasingly hard for some competitor or someone else to try to build their version of that without having all of the synergistic competitive advantage that we currently have right now.
So you're almost like a great integrator to make these teams work, or all these people work collaboratively and interdependently.
Yeah. I guess now you bring to mind when you say it that way, you bring to mind like I remember I was watching one of the Steve Jobs movies, and he talks about how he's not part of the orchestra. He's the composer that's like playing the orchestra. He's like, you guys play the instruments, but I'm playing the orchestra. So you have all these different pieces that have to come together to create this extremely beautiful composed piece, but he's the one having to do this. I forget about that a lot of the time, but as I kind of put the two side by side, it does remind me of that a lot.
Perfect. Favorite verse, favorite Bible verse.
Favorite chapter is Romans 8, but let me see. Favorite verse.
Or if you don't have a verse off top, person that you relate most to. And you can't say the cheat code and say Jesus, because that's it's always the Bible study.
Yeah, I know. No, I don't know if I relate to Jesus as much as I wish I did. I would say probably there are aspects of Paul as far as him being a person who breaks into new areas, new people groups, that sort of thing. I feel like that I'm breaking into new industries and building new relationships in unique ways. But then there's a lot of that I resonate with Peter because of the fact that I always want to please my master, but like I know that I fall short all the time, if that makes sense, right? Like Peter was the guy who, when Jesus told him to let his net out of the boat in the very beginning of their relationship, he's like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And like he didn't believe that Jesus would do anything, and then little did he know it would be like overfilling with fish. And he's the same guy who cut off the centurion's ear. He's the same guy who after or when Jesus was being crucified, or like when he was chained up and being whipped, Peter was just like, I don't know who that is. He denied him 3 times. He's the same dude who after Jesus was resurrected and like was on the shore and Peter was in the boat with this fisherman, like jumped out of the boat and swam to shore to embrace Jesus. And he's the same guy who, when Jesus was resurrected and he had to build the early church, he's the same guy whose shadow people would be healed by, and the same guy who would preach to thousands of people and thousands would come to the faith. So all I have to say, like what I resonate with Peter a lot on is, though I know I'm a very sinful, wretched vessel, meaning in and of my own strength, I can't do any of this stuff. I'm not worthy to do any of this stuff. But I'm thankful that I have to like fight tears. I'm saying this. I'm thankful that I belong to God, if that makes sense. Meaning, like, dude, I don't forget my status. I don't give a crap about that, dude. Like, because I have Jesus, that's the only thing that can ever fulfill me. Like, I have that, and whatever He wants to do with me, I'm all for it. And so I'm grateful that I get to be a mouthpiece and I get to, have talks like the one that I met you at and things like that. But I mean, God and I both know who I am, and there's no getting around that. There's no lying about who I'm no perfect person. Me and God both know that. And so because of that, like, I cling to Him as He leads me along, and whatever He wants to do with me, I'm down for whatever, because what else am I going to do? Like, I think another place I resonate is when Jesus fed the 5,000 and they all had their bellies full and they left. And because He was saying insane things in John 6, like, eat my flesh and drink my blood, blah, blah. And Jesus looking at his disciples like, yeah. And Jesus looking at his disciples, he's like, are y'all going to leave too? And Peter was like, dude, where else are we going to go? Like, you're the ones with eternal life. What am I going to do? Like, if I decide to live a life apart from God, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Just like live my life and indulge in everything and then die, and then like be in the ground, or worse, go to hell?
Yeah.
Like, what else am I going to do, dude? Like, I'm going to be God's. I don't own myself, and there's no point in me trying to own myself. It's a legit waste of time. So
that's well stated.
I'll step off my soapbox.
No, it's real talk. It's well stated. Yeah. Where do people find you? And then also, a curiosity question I had in the back of my head that just popped up was, when you hit that, record-breaking crowdfunding, what was the first thing you did when you saw that? Were you like crying, or were you like, man, I expected this, we did it, we knew it, we worked hard for it? You know what I mean?
we definitely didn't expect it. I thought we were going to be somewhere between maybe 300 to 500K. The first one when it hit 2 million, I was blown away, and for sure I was in tears. Like I was just thinking about how, like, one of the other guys, one of the guys in our church, he actually cuts my hair, and while he's cutting my hair, he was just like, it was like a couple days later, he's like, dude, isn't it like kind of crazy that these many people trust you to that extent? Meaning, like, the average check size was like maybe $1,300 or $1,500, and so having hundreds of people give you that average size check, just not VCs, not angels, not high net worth people, just random people who you've met, like, knowing that, like, you walk, it's almost like equivalent. You walk in and say, hey, would you give me $1,500? And then you go to each one and just collect it. It's like such a weird feeling. And I told him, I was like, dude, it blew me away because I had no idea that people believed in me that much. Like, I knew that people were watching our stuff and they thought, oh, interesting. That's interesting. It's cool. But I didn't know that they would, like, trust in that, like, trust in my execution and trust that I wouldn't just take the money and run, right? Like go to Hawaii or something, right? And then when it came to the $8 million round, same thing, just an increased level of that feeling. And so it also gives me a massive desire to win, to have a win for them, right? Like, I want to turn that $1,500 into $150,000 if I can. And I want to be able to show them, hey, like, not only did I take the money, but I invested it and returned it, 100-fold if possible. So.
Well, the ROI, the stewardship is massive to you. And that's why people have a lot of buy-in into your leadership, is because they see that, I believe that he's going to work the best to steward this very well. It's an honor to see that. Where can people find you at? And any last words? Because you gave us some wisdom. You dropped a lot of jewels in this interview, even by opening up a little bit the curtain on your origin story. Oh, wait, what's one value that your parents gave you that you really appreciate? Because I know you talked about they brought you here. Yeah. What's one of the values that you still carry with you?
I'm not owed anything. It's hard work. You either work hard or you don't eat and you die. So it's like, you're like a lack of entitlement. It's you work, like, if you don't work, you don't eat. Simple as that. Welcome to reality. Yeah.
Perfect. Where do they find you?
Renji.Bijoy on or Renji Bijoy on some other one. Like, just Google Renji Bijoy, you'll find them. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. Always down to connect.
And your companies, talk about it. Say the last place to find it and how they can jump on. Be like, tell us to buy, tell us to consume.
No, it's Immersed. If you buy a Quest headset or any of the new VR headsets, we'll be one of the top non-gaming apps on that store. So you just type in Immersed and it pops up. So.
Love it, man. Renji Bijoy, thank you for your time, and thank you for being that warrior that is joyful and that is going forward, and is more about the bottom line of serving the master than about, I guess, glorifying self. And it shines. And I know, as you say, yes, all your inner workings, but the greater thing is that though there's been a nature that's been crucified, and that you're raised with him, and he's continuing to shine forth the more you continue to yield. So very encouraged by that. Thank you for giving your time and giving of your talent. And we will speak again. Shalom.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do us a favor. If this was useful in any way for you, please go to iTunes and leave us a review. Reviews will allow others to easily discover the podcast. If you'd like more information and to receive a free download, Rediscover Your Destiny, go to ceofdestiny.com. Thanks again, and tune in next time.